Hello students, in this video we are going to explain environmental standards and industry location and its effect on international trade. We know that nowadays the concerns regarding environment is very strong among nations. In most of the nations there are certain norms with regard to environmental standards, and it is to be fulfilled before conducting production process. Therefore, international trade and the location of different industries, where the industries are to be located, is also affected by the different environmental standards set by different nations. By environmental standards we mean the level of air, water, thermal and other pollutions and permitted level of air, water, thermal and pollution due to garbage, waste dumping, etc. Waste dumping also create environmental issues because we know that various types of pollution happens if the wastes are not properly disposed. In microeconomics we have learned the social cost of production, that is the cost of production plus the environmental cost is to be considered while doing the process of production. But the environmental pollution is not properly reflected in the pricing strategy, especially in the case of products which are traded internationally. That is, environmental pollution may lead to serious trade issues, trade problems, because the price of traded goods is not properly reflecting the social or environmental cost incurred for the production of that commodity. That is, if we are incorporating environmental cost as a cost, the cost of production automatically will be increased, and it will be very difficult to trade with lesser competitiveness, because when price increases, competitiveness in international market will be decreased, and therefore the social or environmental cost is not properly reflected in the pricing strategy adopted by different companies that are conducting production in different parts of the world. If a nation set lower environmental standards, it can attract many firms who are considering nature or environment as a resource. There are certain industries who are considering, who are using environment as a resource. Such type of industries will be attracted if the environmental standards are set at low level. For example, many US firms migrated to Mexico to take advantage of lower environmental costs, because Mexico is having only lower environmental standards, and automatically US companies are interested to locate their production from US to Mexico, because Mexico is having only lower environmental standards. This shifting of production process from US to Mexico affect the US labor force, and automatically US labor force opposed NAFTA, that means North American Free Trade Agreement, because they opposed NAFTA. If this free trade will shift the process of production from US to Mexico, and it will result in decrease in jobs due to change in location of industries due to environmental standards, because Mexico is having lower environmental standards, and automatically industries will be shifted from US to Mexico. It will affect the labor force of US, and therefore US laborers opposed the North American Free Trade Agreement. Nowadays, there are various trade agreements between nations. Many international organizations and associations working for economic integration, they are working for economic integration between nations. They strongly recommend that trade agreements must be subject to environmental impact assessment. That is, before implementing a particular trade agreement, there should be proper study with regard to the environmental impact, and that assessment is to be incorporated in the economic integration process through the trade agreements, and these trade agreements must reflect the environmental impact assessment. This was the recommendation of many international organizations. A World Bank study conducted by LOW, an economist, in 1992, they identified that polluting industries and their export have expanded faster than clean industries and their export, especially in poor developing nations than rich countries. In rich countries, there may be a proper environmental standards and controls. Therefore, in case of developing nations, polluting industries or dirty industries have expanded faster than good industries or clean industries. This study also highlights that when a country is becoming richer, their concern on environmental standards and sustainable development increases. That means when an economy develops, their concern with regard to environment and sustainable development normally increases. There are various international movements and organizations, even under UN was there to protect the environment during various times. In 2001, as a part of implementing Kyoto Protocol, various industrialized nations decided to reduce the impact and effect of emission standard, and by setting emission standard, they have intended to reduce the effect of greenhouse gases through Kyoto Protocol. This was signed in 1997. This Kyoto Protocol was on climate change, but US refused to sign this protocol. The complaint of the US was it is very costly to maintain this environmental standard. That is, in order to achieve the target of reducing greenhouse gases, its cost will be very high. That was the opinion of US, and therefore US did not sign in Kyoto Protocol. The United States, we have said that United States refused to sign the agreement, but later in 2007, 190 nations including United States signed an agreement regarding the environmental issues. The Kyoto Protocol was expiring in 2012, therefore a new agreement was required. Therefore, in 2007, a new agreement was signed by 190 nations, including US. US also signed it. It was under the UN, United Nations Conference, which was held in Bali in 2007. They targeted that the greenhouse effect must be reduced at a particular level by 2050. Later, various movements were come under the UN. in their various conferences with regard to the environmental concern and maintaining Kyoto Protocol, because nowadays world economic integration and the nations who are doing international trade normally consider the importance of setting environmental standards or importance of protecting environment by setting proper environmental standards. We know that it affects international trade as well as the production process of different nations, but it is quite necessary to maintain systematically the environmental standards, and then only we can survive or continue sustainable growth and sustainable development and maintain sustainable trade as well.